How's it going, everyone? In today's video we're gonna make an Iranian style flatbread, which is actually quite thick for a flatbread, but it's so light and fluffy with a crispy crust and a super bubbly interior. This is a high hydration dough with lots of fat in it. We'll use the autolyzation technique to help with gluten development, and I'll show you a nifty trick for adding loads of fat to your dough. And these technical lessons can come in handy when making any bread. But just look at this beauty. It is so light and airy, and it's super delicious with all those seeds on top of it, and with all that olive oil in the dough. So let's get to it and see what we need to make this. We'll need some strong white bread flour, yeast, salt, some olive oil and some water for the dough. To top the dough, we'll use some sesame seeds, some nigella seeds or onion seeds, got some caraway seeds, poppy seeds, a bit of sea salt and some oregano. Of course you can top your dough with whatever you like. When it comes to the equipment, we'll need a tray with some non-stick paper, a bowl, scales, a dough scraper and a temperature probe. Now let's start with the Autolyse. I'm using cool water. As the dough is sitting on the table and hydrating, the temperature will come up. So the way this works, we'll take most of the water and all of the flour and mix it together. And we'll just cover it up and leave it to hydrate for around an hour. And whilst the dough is hydrating, the gluten will develop itself. You can find detailed information about this in the Principles of Baking playlist on my channel. So as you can see, I'm picking the dough up and stretching it. It tears really easily and it looks quite rough. Now after the Autolyse, we'll compare it and see the difference. Now one more thing we need to do is flatten the dough out and sprinkle over the salt nice and evenly. We're not mixing the salt into the dough, we're simply dimpling it in with a wet hand. This will help it dissolve whilst the dough is hydrating. And it will make it easier for us to mix it in once we go to knead the dough. So we got our flour, our salt and most of the water. I left some water behind for hydrating the yeast. Now let's let this sit for an hour. And as you can see, I'm picking dough up now and it's super glutinous and stretchy. And we didn't have to do anything to achieve this. All we have to do is wait a little bit. This method is perfect for high hydration dough like this one. And now we can continue on by hydrating the yeast and adding it to the dough. Make sure you dissolve it properly. Mix it well. You don't want any dry yeast in your dough. Now pour it into the bowl. Wet your hand with some water and start squeezing everything together. Squeeze it nice and hard until everything's well combined. This will take about a minute or so. And once you have mixed it up, pop the dough out on the table and we can start kneading. Now because this is quite sticky and stretchy, we're going to use the stretch and fold method for kneading it. Have your scraper handy. Wet your hands with some water, then pick the dough up by the side, stretch it against the table and fold it forwards, and always pick it up by the side. And every time you pick it up, turn it 90 degrees. You want to knead it like this for 10 minutes in total, and every 2 minutes or so, scrape it all together. Then continue kneading and repeat. And as you keep going, it'll get less and less sticky. And 10 minutes later, you're done. It'll still be a bit sticky, but wet your hands to handle it to make it easier. Stickiness aside, this dough is nice and smooth and stretchy. That's exactly what we want. Now let's get this out of the way and clean down the mess. Now grab your bowl and add all of the oil. Place your dough into the bowl and roll it around. Cover it with oil on all sides. Then pick it up by the middle, let it stretch down and fold it underneath itself. And this is how we are going to incorporate the oil into the dough. I'll show you a close-up later on. But basically, we're not kneading the dough with the oil. We are folding the oil into the dough. And this is a good way of adding large amounts of oil into your high hydration dough. Now before we start fermentation, let's take the temperature. Around 25 to 26 degrees Celsius is just about right for this. Now cover it up and leave it to proof for 15 minutes. And now we'll start the folding process. It is very simple and easy. Pick the dough up by the middle, let it hang down and then roll it underneath itself. Then turn it and repeat on all sides. And you can pick it up and push the sides down and into the middle. Don't worry if it feels a bit loose and messy at the moment. It's completely normal. As we continue folding, the dough will get smoother and absorb more of the oil. This is only the first fold out of 5. Now cover it up and leave it to proof for another 15 minutes. Now we can do fold number 2. Same process. Pick it up by the middle, let it hang down and roll it underneath itself. Then turn it and repeat. And here's a better look at it. And lastly, pick it up and gently push the sides down and into the middle. You don't want to fold it too tight, otherwise they'll start tearing. You want to be nice and gentle. Now we can cover it up, give it another 15 minutes Then do the third fold. And as the dough is fermenting and accumulating fermentation gases, it will become nice and light and fluffy and fragile. So as a general rule for folding any dough, you want to perform every subsequent fold more gently than the previous one, to ensure that you don't tear the dough or deflate it too much. Fold number 5 marks the end of bulk fermentation. The dough is super bubbly, nice and light. Now just give it a couple of folds, and you can place it on a tray with some non-stick paper and place it down with the smooth side pointing up. Then take any leftover oil from the bowl and pour it on top of the dough. You want to stretch the loaf out a little bit before we start final fermentation. It's good to do it now, because we don't want to disturb it too much before we do the final shaping. So gently going back and forth, dimple it with your fingertips and it will stretch. It doesn't have to fit the tray, we'll make it do that later. Now leave it to ferment for 1 hour, and during this time preheat your oven. 210 degrees Celsius with the fan off. And that is 410 degrees Fahrenheit for my American friends. And look at this bad boy, it's puffed up beautifully, it's massive. Now we'll top it with some more oil. I mean, you can't have too much olive oil in your life, right? It'll just make it taste amazing, give it a nice crust. If you want to make it a bit more low fat, add less oil into the dough, add less oil on top of the dough, that's up to you. But regardless of what you do, finish stretching the dough. Now watch my hands, I'm not just pulling by the corners, I'm picking the dough up by the middle and pulling from the middle out. This way you'll get a more even thickness. If you just pull it from the corners, the middle will stay thick and the corners will be thin. To make the lines, simply press your fingertips right down to the paper. You almost want to go through the dough. That way the lines will not puff out as it's baking. You can do more lines closer to each other, you can do less lines further apart. Now sprinkle it with your toppings. To get a nice and even distribution, sprinkle it from a height. I believe normally this bread would be topped with sesame seeds and nigella seeds. But it's your bread, top it with whatever you want. You can even make a focaccia out of this. After you finish topping, pop this bad boy in the oven. It'll take around 25 minutes. But once it's nice and crusty, golden brown all over, it's ready. But that's how we make a high hydration Iranian style flatbread. Eat it while it's fresh. It'll be best closer to the time when it comes out of the oven. So what do you think of this recipe? Let me know down in the comments. Have you tried any of the methods I described? What's your favorite high hydration bread? For how simple this is, it's well worth trying out. But that's all I have for you today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.